At 60, your biggest enemy is not aging. It is the youthful tolerance you refuse to let die. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because most women I know are fighting the wrong battle. They are worried about their health, their finances, their appearance, the number on the scale, and all of those things matter. But the thing that is quietly destroying the quality of their lives, the thing that is costing them sleep and energy and years, is a standard they set in their 30s and never updated. A tolerance for low-effort partnership that made a certain kind of sense when they were 26 and makes absolutely no sense now. Why are you still accepting a partner who offers nothing but a physical presence? Why are you still maintaining connections that drain you without ever refilling you? Your time is not unlimited. It never was. But at 60, that is not an abstract truth anymore. It is the ground beneath your feet. And if you are still spending it on emotional ghosts, people who are technically there and genuinely nowhere, you are not being loyal. You are wasting the only currency that cannot be earned back. It is time to burn those bridges. The fallacy of longevity over quality. We were raised on a particular idea about relationships. The idea that the length of a connection was its own evidence of worth. That if something had survived 20, 30, 40 years, that survival itself was the achievement. We called it commitment. We called it loyalty. We called it what marriage looks like after the romance fades. What we did not examine, what nobody asked us to examine, was whether the thing that survived was actually worth surviving. Whether the decades together produced something that enriched both people, or whether they simply produced a long time. Because time is not the same as quality. A prison sentence is a long time. That does not make it a life. The 20th century model of sticking it out was built for a different world. A world where the alternative to a bad marriage was poverty. Where a woman alone was a woman socially erased. Where the stigma of leaving was often greater than the cost of staying. Those were real constraints for our mothers and grandmothers, and I am not dismissing them. But most of those constraints no longer exist, and yet we are still making decisions as though they do. We are still staying inside situations that stopped serving us years ago because something in us still believes that the duration justifies the endurance. Then there is the sunk cost trap, the most seductive logic in the world. I have been here for 30 years. If I leave now, what was it all for? The years I already spent become the argument for spending more, as though the only way to honor the time already given is to give more time still. But the years behind you are fixed. They are already spent. The question is not what you have invested. The question is what the next 10 years of your life will look like, and whether this connection, as it actually is today, not as it was or as you hope it will become, deserves to be in them. Challenge the societal pressure to value longevity simply because it survived. A long relationship that makes you smaller is not an achievement. It is a very long cost. The high cost of low-effort partnership. Let me define something, because bare minimum has become one of those phrases people use without really unpacking what it means. So let me tell you what I mean when I say it. The bare minimum in your 60s is a partner who is physically present and broadly cooperative, who does not create active chaos, who shows up to the family events and pays the bills and does not, most of the time, do anything obviously terrible. That is the bare minimum. And I am telling you that the bare minimum is not neutral. It is not a livable standard. It is a slow, quiet theft of the emotional energy you have left, which is not unlimited, and which, in your 60s, is more precious than it has ever been. Passive presence, what some people call roommate syndrome, is not a compromise. It is not what you signed up for, even if you have been living inside it so long it feels normal. A partner who is simply there, occupying space, going through the motions of a shared life without actually investing in you, in your joy, in your growth, in the quality of your days. That partner is not a neutral presence. They are a drain. Because being around someone who does not truly see you costs something. The hope that they might, the quiet grief of the years when they did not, the energy spent managing the gap between what you need and what you receive, that is a cost. And it is being charged against you every single day. The research is not ambiguous. We know from 2 decades of data on relationships and health in older adults that high-stress, low-reciprocity partnerships are associated with poorer cardiac health, elevated cortisol levels, disrupted sleep, and faster cognitive decline. These are not metaphors. The quality of your closest relationship is not separate from the quality of your physical life. It is embedded in it. Your body is keeping the score even when your mind has decided to stop looking at it. Active emotional labor, the kind where your partner notices you, invests in you, initiates connection, shows up with real presence, not just physical proximity that is not a luxury. It is not asking too much. It is the minimum standard for a relationship that is doing you more good than harm. The biological mandate for radical self-preservation. Here is the shift I want you to make. And it is a significant one because it runs against almost everything we were taught about what a good woman does. Stop trying to save the relationship. Start trying to save yourself. I am not saying relationships cannot be repaired. I am not saying the moment something is imperfect, you should leave. What I am saying is that for most women, I know women in their 60s who have spent decades trying, adjusting, accommodating, shrinking, hoping the primary mission has been the preservation of the partnership. And the self has been the thing that gets managed around that mission. The self gets the leftovers. The self makes do. That framework has to be inverted because the research on well-being in the third act of life is consistent. The women who thrive, not just survive, but genuinely thrive, are the women who have made themselves the primary project, not in a selfish, isolated way, in a clear-eyed, honest way that says, my health, my joy, my peace of mind, my sense of purpose, these are the non-negotiables. Everything else, including my relationships, gets evaluated against that standard, not the other way around. Setting a higher standard for what you will accept in your closest relationships is not selfishness. It is a biological mandate. It is the most rational response to what the data tells us about how relationships affect the aging body and mind. A chronically unfulfilling relationship is not a benign background condition. It is an active health risk. And choosing to remove yourself from it or to insist on something better is not abandonment of your values. It is the deepest possible form of self-care, burning the bridges of youthful tolerance. Let me ask you something practical. What did you tolerate at 35 that you would not tolerate today if you were starting fresh? Think about it honestly. The emotional unavailability you explained away as stress, the dismissiveness you called directness, the absence of tenderness you reframed as just how men are, the canceled plans, the minimized feelings, the conversations that went nowhere, the specific loneliness of being in a room with someone and feeling entirely alone. You accommodated all of it. Not because you were a fool, because you were building something and you believed the cost was temporary, and because the world around you rewarded women who were accommodating and punished those who were not. Those accommodations are now 3 decades old. They have calcified into the structure of your relationship, into the expectations others hold of you, into the standard you have allowed to become normal, and they need to be named before they can be changed. Burning the bridge of youthful tolerance does not mean burning the relationship. It means ending your own participation in the pattern. It means looking clearly at the specific behaviors you have been excusing, not as a list of grievances, but as an honest audit, and deciding which ones you are no longer willing to carry. The same audit applies to your wider circle. Not just your partner, but the friends who take without giving, the family members who drain without nourishing, the connections you maintain out of history and obligation rather than genuine mutual investment. The question is not, how long have we known each other? The question is, does this person contribute to my life, or do they simply occupy it? People-pleasing, the habit of managing other people's comfort at the expense of your own truth, is not kindness. It is a form of dishonesty, and it is one of the most expensive habits a woman can carry into her 60s. Because every time you suppress what you actually need in order to keep someone else comfortable, you are teaching yourself that your needs are negotiable, and they are not. They are the foundation of everything. The new standard for living deeply? So what does the other standard look like? What are we actually building toward when we say we are done settling? I want to name it clearly, because I think we sometimes use the language of raising our standards without getting concrete about what we are raising them to. The new standard is not perfection. It is not the absence of conflict or difficulty. It is not a relationship where everything is easy and no one ever disappoints anyone. That does not exist, and chasing it is its own trap. The new standard is active joy and mutual growth. That is the only bar worth clearing. Active joy means that your relationship, whether romantic or platonic, regularly produces moments of genuine pleasure, genuine laughter, genuine lightness. Not just the absence of misery, not just manageable, actually good, in ways you can point to, in ways that leave you feeling more like yourself rather than less. Mutual growth means that you are both in this connection becoming more of who you are, not shrinking to fit, not performing contentment you do not feel, but actually expanding in your thinking, your courage, your sense of what is possible because of what this relationship brings out in you. Communicate these standards without apology, not as ultimatums, not as accusations, but as clear, honest statements of what you need and what you are no longer available for. The conversations will not always be comfortable, but they will be real, and real is what you are owed. The freedom on the other side of this is not the freedom of being alone. It is the freedom of a life that is actually yours, a life curated by choice rather than sustained by fear, where every significant relationship in it is there because it genuinely belongs, because it adds something, because it lifts you, because it is built on truth rather than on tolerance that ran out years ago. You have spent long enough making room for people who did not make room for you. You have spent long enough adjusting your expectations downward rather than asking the world to meet you where you are. 60 is not the beginning of an ending. It is the clearest you have ever seen. And what you can see, if you choose to look, is exactly how much of your one life you want to spend in rooms that were never really built for you. The bare minimum is not your ceiling. It never was. If this is the conversation you have needed someone to have with you, share it with a woman in your life who is ready to hear it. And if you are not yet here on this porch, subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of truth we tell each other here. I am Patricia, and I will see you next week.